There is a movie that's been recently very popular called The Martian. It came out this year. It's been pretty well received. It's a science fiction movie, obviously. We have not been to Mars, at least as far as I know. There is some discussion of that. But anyway, it was directed by Ridley Scott, and as you can see, it stars Matt Damon. It's based upon Andy Weir's book, which, by the way, I highly recommend the book. The movie's just okay, but the book's great. And so you might want to read the book if you get a chance. That came out in 2011. It's very scientific and factual based, except for the windstorm. That's wholly baloney. But and that they went to Mars, they didn't go. At any rate, this is the byline behind it. It says, in the year 2035, the crew of Ares 3, a manned mission to Mars, has established a temporary artificial habitat called the Hab on Mars, where they are staying for 31 Martian days, or Shoals, before their departure for Earth in their orbiting spacecraft, the Hermes. 18 souls into the Mars mission, however, the crew is forced to abandon the planet to escape a massive Martian storm. That's the part of the story that's wholly fabricated. A 100-mile-an-hour wind on Mars is equivalent to a 1-mile-an-hour wind here, so it'd never blow over anything. But while excavating, astronaut Mark Watney is lost and presumed dead as his biomonitor is damaged. With the lives of her crew at stake, Mission Commander Melissa Lewis is forced to leave the planet rather than risk the launch vehicle collapsing, leaving Watney behind. Watney is unable to contact NASA and is presumed dead by the crew and mission control. And that's the beginning of the movie, the beginning of the story. That's how it starts. And what caught me is it reminded me a lot of Apollo 13. Do y'all remember Apollo 13? Were you alive during the time of Apollo 13? A united purpose to save life is almost miraculous by itself. How many obstacles they overcame to get those 3 people back is still amazing to us all. And it's a powerful image. And so if you don't like the Martian image that I'm using tonight, think of Apollo 13. But what I'm looking at tonight is how, when a lot of people work together, what can be accomplished. And it's almost unlimited. From the Tower of Babel, in Genesis 11 and verse 6, it says, "And the Lord said, Indeed, the people are one, and they all have one language, and this is what they begin to do. Now nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them." It's as if mankind does become united, even God has to come up with something to prevent them so that they don't just do anything and everything. We see that power in this idea of unity and what can be accomplished by it. A pack of wolves. One wolf, a person can pretty well fend off. You can pretty well keep a wolf from eating you. You're that smart, you're that creative. But a pack of wolves is a different thing. I don't know if you've ever watched any of these shows. I'm sure you have, Animal Planet or whatever. The wild dogs of Africa. They'll be in packs of 50 or more, and they're about as big as your dog, but their jaws are much bigger and they're much more powerful. They almost have as powerful a bite as a hyena, which is probably the most fierce bite that there is on just about any land animal out there. But a pack of wild dogs can virtually not be stopped. They'll kill whatever they want to in their path. Hyenas are almost, in case in point, similar. A pride of lions. Who can stop a pride of lions attacking you? One person is no hope at all. But even a large herd headed your way, and even if they're not that big of an animal, I really wouldn't want to be in line for a herd of antelope. I mean, You just really don't want them coming your way. Herds have power, and it's the way that they cooperate that creates their power. Man, believe it or not, is probably one of the weakest predators on the planet. By ourselves, we're just not that strong. Probably not stronger than almost any animal out there, pound for pound. And yet, because we cooperate and we use intelligence, we're the most feared animal on the planet. Because there is nothing that can defeat us out there if we want to take it down. There's no animal that hasn't been captured and killed by a human. And that, as long as we've been around. I don't know about the T-Rex if we were around with that. But at any rate, cooperation is when people know you love them and you seek their best interest, and we cooperate together for the tribe, if you will. If we work together for the tribe of whatever we belong to, there's almost nothing we can't do. And we end up helping each other. That's basically what I want to talk about, using that story about how in the story the whole world cooperated to try to bring back one person from a terrible situation. And so too, the whole world worked to bring back the Apollo astronauts and Apollo 13. I want to look at 3 spiritual truths that I believe jump out at this whole idea of the Martian, Apollo 13, and the idea of helping. So let's just take a look. Number 1, we're all about adventure. We all love adventure to some degree, but adventure literally gives us life. But helping save a life is more important than any adventure we might be on. In the story of the Martian and the story of Apollo 13, they were explorers. NASA is an exploring business, if you will. And they are, in fact, adventurers. Many of them in the real world were very much almost like daredevils in that they would fly planes that maybe weren't worthy of flying, test pilots and the like. But when endangered, they went from just trying to have an adventure to an early launch to save everyone's life. And so too, they were on their way to the moon in Apollo 13. And they went around it, but they gave up landing on it because of that explosion they had. In other words, life became the most important thing. A true spiritual adventurer, and I'd like to think that we all see ourselves as spiritual adventurers. I don't believe in stagnation. I don't believe I've arrived. Do you? I don't believe I'm where I ought to be or that I can't do better. And I think that's a dangerous thought if you think you're exactly where you ought to be and that you can't do any better. But a true spiritual adventurer seeks a greater challenge. Matthew 16 verse 24 says, "Then Jesus said to his disciples, 'If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me.'" So I think that's the whole idea. We're adventurers. We're willing to take on a challenge that almost seems unrealistic. We're kind of pie in the sky people, if you hadn't thought about it. We are the kind of people willing to take tremendous risk. You've rolled the dice. Whether you know it or not, you've rolled the dice. And that is, you've bet your entire life. Now, I don't believe it's a bad bet, by the way. I think it's 100% certain. But you have bet your entire life on what you're doing. Everything is on this. Everything. It has affected everything you do. So you're an adventurer and you're willing to take a challenge. But even a spiritual adventurer knows helping save a life is more important. It's more important than me getting to where I want to be or doing what I want to do. In Matthew 19 verse 21, Jesus said unto him, "If you want to be perfect, go sell what you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come follow me." So here's the deal. If you really want to be somewhere special, it isn't about your sacrifice in the sense for your benefit and your advancement and your adventure, but rather just to help somebody else. And if it took everything you've got to help someone else, well, there you go, right? Amen? You see somebody along the side of the road, even though it's risky, You'll sometimes pull over anyway, or at least you'll call, 911, whatever you feel like you can do. But a spiritual truth that jumps out at you from both this story and the whole idea of the Apollo 13 is adventure gives us life. It really makes life fun. To go out and try something new. It gives us life. We enjoy life because of adventure. I'm going somewhere I've never been. You say, I'm not much of an adventurer. You like going places? You like going on vacation? You go places you've always been, or do you go new places? You like to go new places. Go to the mountains, go to the sea, wherever you want to go. It's an adventure to go on it. You go to another country, it's an adventure. We're all kind of adventurers to some way, but adventure gets put aside for helping someone. The second little truth is discovery gives us life, but helping save a life is more important. Yeah, I really believe in discovery. I think it's a wonderful thing. In the movie The Martian, they're there to explore and to discover great truths about Mars, whatever that might be. You never know, we may want to live there one day. Well, I won't be living there and you won't be living there, but our great-great-great-grandchildren, who knows what will happen. But they would not dare take the chance on seeing a microbe be on Mars. This is part of the reason that they're careful about actually going there initially. I don't know if you know this, but every one of the Martian probes, that's one of the big things. They clean them and clean them and clean them and clean them, and they radiate them, and they're trying to prevent any of our stuff from this planet getting on that, some little microbe, going to that planet, surviving and multiplying. That's a big problem. They don't want to pollute the planet with our life forms, because then we wouldn't know if there ever was life there, and that's one of their big deals. You know about that. But the point is that you don't want to take a chance on that, because you're a discoverer and you want to find out what you can find out there. Unless you find out you have to be a potato farmer. If you watch the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And all of a sudden, he was willing to take the dead soil of Mars and turn it into a potato farm inside the hab. And to do that, he had to use waste products because they had bacteria in them. The point is that suddenly the whole idea of being a discoverer just went out of the way, because what mattered most? Surviving. Life mattered more. Suddenly life meant more. A true spiritual discoverer seeks a greater knowledge. We all, if you're really what I'm talking about tonight, and I believe you are, I believe you want to dig deeper. I believe you want to discover more. I think if I could get up here tonight and show you a verse that you've missed all your life that would bless you, nothing would give you greater satisfaction than that tonight, would it? You would be like on the edge of your seat. Yes, I want to see that. I want to learn that. We're that way. So we're adventurers to some degree, trying things, and we're discoverers, always digging deeper. Philippians 3 and verse 8, yet indeed I also count all things lost for the excellency of the knowledge of Christ Jesus my Lord. I put aside everything to learn more about Jesus, right? What would you give up to learn more about Jesus? Well, basically you already have everything, whatever it would take, for whom he says, I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish, that I might gain Christ. So we'll just put aside almost anything to learn a little nugget. If I could give, I don't have one tonight, sorry to disappoint. But if I could give you a little nugget tonight that it would buoy you all the way through the week. You'd be like, wow, wasn't that a great thought? Wasn't that neat? And so we are like that. But even a spiritual discoverer knows that helping save a life is more important. We have Bible classes. And the whole reason we have Bible classes is so that we will all grow, right? We share with each other. That's part of the reason. We like having really good teachers, but it's just as important to have input from everybody else, because sometimes they have an insight that nobody's had. So we're looking for that input, that knowledge. But folks, knowledge by itself is a bad thing. If we don't care about one another, if we don't care about people, that's a useless thing. In fact, it's a dangerous thing. And 1 Corinthians 8 and verse 1 puts it this way, now concerning things offered to idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Basically, we all know idols aren't anything, is what he's really saying. But then he goes on to say, 1 Corinthians 8 and verse 1, knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. Sometimes when we know a little bit, we get to thinking we know a whole lot. And then we look down on others that don't know what you know and I know, or we'll put them down because we think we know something. And one thing's clear, if you're about putting other people down, you don't know as much as you think you know, right? Because if the one thing you should know is what's more important are other people, right? And how they feel. And so putting them down is more important than showing out, right? Amen? That's not a strong amen, but I got one. So a spiritual truth that jumps out is discovery gives us life, but helping save a life is far more important. Helping save a soul that's struggling is far more important than the other. For example, somebody's on the side of the road, somebody's hurt on the side of the road, you're to teach a Bible class. I'm thinking the guy hurt on the side of the road takes precedent, don't you think? So we help the guy, and we let the Bible class and everybody get mad at us, but somebody will step in or they'll sing or something, right? They'll get by, they'll survive, but this person needs it. On the other hand, there's a time when actually teaching the class is more important than other things, right? So you let other things because that's helping someone. So a spiritual truth that jumps out is discovery, gives us life, and it's something we love, and it makes us feel alive. But helping save a life is more important. Thirdly, creativity is a wonderful thing. We get bored so easy. I mean, you talk to any teenager, how you doing? I'm bored. If you don't believe you're bored on a regular basis, just look around the crowd you're in and see how many's looking at their cell phone instead of the person they're with. They're totally bored. Well, I don't know why we're that bored, but we are that bored. If we weren't that bored, why would we have 100 channels? You know what I mean? I mean, seriously, you can't watch but one at a... Well, maybe you can watch more than that. Some of you may have 4 or 5 TVs in your room. But most of the time, so creativity gives us life. We love it. It makes life interesting. We like to be creative. But helping save a life is more important than that. In this movie, The Martian, this guy, Matt Damon, who I wish they hadn't used him. But anyway, Matt Damon makes the trip. I don't like him, I'm sorry. He gets the launch vehicle ready to leave the planet. I can't tell you too much here, but anyway, he comes up short, right? He comes up short. He doesn't get it done enough. And this big ship has to make a decision as to whether or not to risk a flyby. They've already gone to months of trouble to save him. Should they risk a flyby and potentially they could all die, or do they leave him? So there's your question. But they've all been so creative, but at some point you just have to take a leap, right? So a true spiritual creative seeks greater ideas for ministry and missions. Some of you have great ideas. I wish we could do... If we had a brainstorm session tonight and we came up with creative ideas on missions and ministry, we could easily, with this many people in this room, come up with 100, 200 great ideas. We couldn't do them, but we could come up with a handful that we've never thought about that we could probably do. And then of that, there'd be 1 or 2 that would be amazing and that we would all be so proud of. We don't really get a chance to do that often, but that's creativity. And it's a gift and it's a blessing. And you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to take risks. You're supposed to try. And we should do more of that. More brainstorming over stuff we could do than we do. We really should, because to think that the elders have all the brains in this church is silly. It's just 8 guys, right? There's no way that they could know as much as however many's in there right now. It's just not possible. Matthew 25 and verse 20. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents beside them. He took some kind of a risk. You don't double what you're doing. You just don't do that easily. So he took some kind of risk. I don't know what his ideas were. I don't know how he made this money. It doesn't explain that. But I know he did something, right? And he took some kind of a risk to accomplish it. And the point is that it took some pretty cool ideas, I suspect. If you're a businessman tonight, all of you businessmen, you know what? You're pretty smart. And your business models have to really work. They may be theory at first, but at some point they actually have to work, don't they? They actually have to accomplish something to produce money. And so it's pretty amazing that you're able to do that. You have to take some risks to accomplish that. And I think God is pleased. You ever watched an ant bed? You ever watch an ant bed? It's amazing, isn't it? It's just an ant bed, not an aunt bed, but an ant bed. So it's amazing to see what they can do, right? And you get great pleasure. What is it? We get great pleasure from watching animals do what they're supposed to do, and these insects and all. It really gives us great pleasure. Do you think God's any less pleased when He sees you successful at what it is you do for a living? You think that the only person on the pay of the Lord is me or Dwight? Every one of you are getting paid directly by God to do what you do. That money's created by Him. And He likes to see you being creative and coming up. If you're in school, you're being paid to go to school. If you're a child, you're being paid to be a good child to your parent. If you're a parent, you're being paid to be a parent. You say, I don't see any money. You eating, right? Right? So you're being paid to be creative and to do what, because to raise kids, mamas, you have to be some of the most creative people in the world. For one thing, how do you figure out how to stay sane? I didn't figure that one out with kids around the house. So I think, and then to keep them busy and keep them from tearing the house down, you got to be pretty quick. And so I'm just suggesting that creativity and ideas are a wonderful thing. But even a spiritual creative knows that helping save a life is more important. Helping save a soul is more important. In Matthew 19, verse 9, it says, But when some were hardened and did not believe, but spoke evil of the way before the multitude, He departed from them and withdrew the disciples, reasoning daily in the school of Tyrannus. Tried something new, but that's not what mattered. Verse 10, And this continued for 2 years, so that all who dwelt in Asia heard the word of the Lord. That's how people are saved, my friend. They heard the word of the Lord Jesus, both Jews and Greeks. And that's what matters, that they heard and they had an opportunity to be saved. And sometimes we forget what really matters, don't we, in the process of our being creative. So don't get mad at each other because everybody's not as creative as you are. Realize what really matters is that souls are reached and saved. So a spiritual truth that jumped out is that creativity gives us life and we enjoy it so much. But helping save a life is more important. So we love to be adventurers. We like to try new things. Discovery is important to us, being creative. All that's great, but what really counts are people. That's what I'm trying to get at. People. And listen to me now. And this is going to sound wrong. What I'm fixed to say, I understand it's going to sound wrong. But it's not really wrong. People are more important than what doctrine we teach. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not wanting to cast aside any doctrine. But when we get to the point that our doctrines start running over people, we're probably wrong. When our thinking and our teaching starts stepping on people, we're probably wrong. Because people are the reason Jesus came to this planet, right? That's the reason He died on a cross, right? People? Or did He die to give the doctrine to the world? Or did He die to save the world? What do you think? Don't you think it was to save man? And you say, well, you can't do it without the doctrine. I get that. I'm there with you. I'm with you. But what matters are the people. Look at these words. I'm going to just run through a few quotes here. This is a fellow named Marshall. He says, there are no passengers on Spaceship Earth. We're all crew. So do your part to help everybody else out. I like this one, Ralph Waldo Emerson. The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. You've made this world a better place. Why? For the others. How about this one? Henry David Thoreau. All men want not something to do with, but something to do, or rather, something to be. We want to be people that matter and make a difference and make the world. Isn't that what you want? Isn't it? Don't you want to be that you've helped people so much that they hate to see you going rather than hate to see you coming? And then Mahatma Gandhi, he said, in a gentle way, you can shake the world. And you can't rattle it, all over the place, but you can shake it a little bit and make a difference in this world. And I think that's what we're called to do. Not just serve ourselves through adventure or discovery or being creative in this life, but rather to make the world a better place for some others. And I really like this quote. You may have never liked him, but I actually like the guy. Bobby Kennedy. Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events. It is from numberless diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. I actually believe that. I actually think as we all do good things for others, it makes the world a better place. And then I like this one, and those of you who are millennials out there, I love this. CNN reporter Rachel Evans said, and she's a millennial, she says, as a millennial, we want to be known for what we stand for, not what we are against. And the reason I want to mention all of that is this right here. I know some of you worry about some of these things like ISIS. And that worries you. And it's a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. Not trying to undercut it. It's a really bad thing. But let me tell you why I know it will fail. And I don't need an army. I know it will fail. Without an army, it will fail. Why will it fail? Well, it'll fail for two primary reasons. Number one, it will fail because it's not about what it's for, it's about what it's against. And whenever you're on anything and all it's about what you're on is what you're against, you're going to fail. I don't care what it is. There is nothing can just be about what you're against. It has to be what you're for. But that's not the most important one. The most important reason that it will fail is because it takes its most dedicated, sold out believers and it straps a bomb to them and blows them up. When if they would take that same amount of energy and go teach what they believe, they'd probably change the world. We don't want you to be killed. We don't want you to be hurt. We want you to succeed. And we want you to speak a word for Jesus to make a difference in this world. This church, if it succeeds at all, will succeed because it values, sure, adventure and discovery and creativity. But what it will succeed most of all for is that we understand you matter. Which you? Every one of you matters. How much? If you're disturbed tonight, any one of us would sit with you for hours. Right now. There is no one here unimportant. Every one of you that can understand what I'm saying should understand. You matter. This whole church would stop the end of service for you. we would not close out until you, if you needed to come forward tonight, we will not close out, we will not go home until your needs are met. Amen? Because the individual is what matters. That's what makes us strong. And so, the lesson tonight is helping. The most important thing we can learn out of both Apollo 13 and that crazy movie is, what matters to us most? People. And then helping people. So if you're here tonight and you need help, we'll wait on you to help you all that we can. We're going to sing a song in a moment of invitation. And we're all going to stand up. Why do we stand up? To help you if you need to make that walk forward where it's not quite as intimidating. We will do everything we can to help you meet the Lord here tonight. And we will teach you, we will talk to you, we'll study with you, because helping really matters, because you matter. But if you need to come, why don't you come right now as we stand and as we sing.